At that time, I was living with my grandmother. Her best friend, Antonia, was also my best friend's mother. Unfortunately, Antonia died in 1984 at the end of August, and the funeral was in early September. Of course, I attended the funeral. We were all shocked because Antonia was only 63. After the funeral, I tried to comfort my friend. On the way home, I wanted to buy something from the groceries, but I had an accident. I was driving a moped, and helmets were not required at that time. I overtook a truck because it was driving so slowly in the local area. The oncoming lane was clear, but suddenly, a lady with a bicycle came out onto the street from the right side. My only options were to run her over or avoid her. So I dodged her and fell several meters from the moped and hit my head on the sidewalk. I passed out immediately, and rescue took me to the casualty hospital. There, I could see and hear everything, but I couldn't move at all or react to anything. I still remember exactly what the doctor looked like. He tested the reflexes of my foot, but there were none. As the nurse pushed me towards the operating room, she stroked my hair and said, "The poor girl, it's a shame about her long blonde hair." I was shocked and thought I was going to have an operation on my head. I didn't want that at all, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The next thing I remember is that they brought me into the intensive care unit. As I was lying there in bed, I suddenly noticed leaving my body. I saw my body lying below from above, and I asked myself, where am I? Then immediately I was in a kind of tunnel. I felt that I was pulled out of the room fiercely. After that, I was not longer present in the hospital room. Moving through that tunnel felt like a very long time, and at the very end of the tunnel there was a beautiful bright light. Just gigantic, this light. I am an artist, but the light and colors I saw are indescribable. There are no words for that. What I particularly liked was the lightness. You know how sometimes your body feels heavy and sluggish? But in that moment, I was light as a feather. I was floating effortlessly. The feeling of happiness was also indescribable. Then I was in a meadow full of flowers that smelled good, and I saw Antonia, the woman who had just been buried. I knew her well because I grew up with her daughter. We communicated, but differently, only through consciousness. She asked me why I was there and said to me that my time was not yet ripe. I also asked her what she was doing there because we had just buried her. At that moment, I wasn't sure what the whole thing was about. Then she said again that my time was not yet ripe and that I had to go back. There were other people behind her. I couldn't see them individually, but I knew there were others waiting for me. I couldn't see them clearly because Antonia was so close in front of me. In any case, I liked it there so much that I didn't want to go back to Earth. I was only 17 myself, and I became my daughter very early. She was only 2.5 years old at that time. As a mother, of course, I thought of my child, but at that moment, I didn't care about anything else at all. It was just bliss and total ease in which I really wanted to stay. I was so happy to experience it, but then I came back into my body. It felt like a very bad cut. Everything was so heavy and sluggish again. The pain was back, and the doctors tore at me. I realized that I was dead, and they resuscitated me. I recovered very quickly. I didn't need an operation and was moved to the normal ward the next day. It was like a medical miracle, and I was released 2 days later. Did you ask the doctors if you were resuscitated? No. but I was definitely out of my body. I also remember that the doctors tore my body a lot when I came back. It was very uncomfortable, and I was consciously aware that everyone was hectic. But I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was very young then, so I didn't specifically ask the doctors about it. I remember that I should have had an operation, and the nurse said it was a shame about my hair. But my body was not conscious and not alive. I couldn't react. I could perceive everything, but I couldn't move. I didn't know any more than that. What I did know for sure was that I was out of my body. This was not just an imagination. I also saw this woman, Antonia. I immediately knew that it was her, and we talked. She was so beautiful there. She looked 30 years younger. Her face looked so young. She really was a beautiful woman. Did you tell the staff about this experience? No, I didn't say anything because I was young and didn't want to talk about it. I talked to other people about it later, but not the clinical staff. I was mostly just happy to get out of the hospital because the situation was overwhelming. First the funeral, then my accident, and then the hospital. I was just glad to leave. But when I left the hospital, I felt amazingly well, too good for these conditions. I felt as if nothing had happened at all. I didn't have any pain either. I was still in pain when I was first back in my body, but the pain was gone the next day. I was absolutely fine, also at home. Were the doctors amazed at the speed of healing? Yes, I saw that. They were amazed because my recovery was progressing so quickly. I still remember that. But it was a long time ago in 1984 when I was still a teenager. I didn't like being in the hospital, and I just wanted to get out of there. But it was important that I was allowed to have this experience, especially because I had a different consciousness beforehand, and especially about death. I had always been afraid of dying. I read a lot of books about it, but they couldn't give me any consolation. It was only through my own positive experience when my thinking changed that there is something after death, because I experienced it myself. I was also able to comfort my best friend. She believed me that I had seen her mother. That gave her comfort and hope, because such losses are difficult. We had known each other for 15 years, so she believed me. She knew I was telling the truth. I know I experienced it even though I can't prove it. And later, you also had an after-death contact? Yes, I have always been very sensitive, and even as a small child, I was more perceptible than others. I feel a lot more, but usually I did not talk too much about it, because many people do not want to hear it. However, one of the most dramatic events for me was an experience in 2006 when my good acquaintance's son died. It was like a slap in my face because I knew her son from an early age. He was 15 years old, and it was on a school trip when he fell 100 feet from a mountain range. I read about it in the newspaper at that time, and I was very sad. I knew there was life after death, but this young death shocked me, and I felt the pain of his mother. I called her and offered my condolences. A day later, one day before the funeral, I met Dennis in a dream. It was very intense and unlike any normal dream. In that dream, he appeared to me like an angel. He was so beautiful and beaming at me. He was dressed in white and said, "Please, Jasmin." I get goosebumps even today just thinking about it. Tell my mother I'm fine, and I don't want her to cry for me so much. Please tell my mom that I'm fine where I am. Please tell her that. I still get goosebumps to this day when I think of that experience. I woke up amazed at this intense dream. It was as if I had met him for real. First, I just left it there. The funeral was right around the corner. It was a very big funeral with lots of kids and white balloons. Exactly one day after the funeral, I had the same encounter again that night. It was just like the first dream, so I thought I should tell his mother about it. Then we spoke on the phone, and I expressed myself carefully. I knew she was very sensitive, and my dream would comfort her. I said, I had 2 dreams about Dennis, and he told me the same thing twice. He is fine, and I should tell you to stop crying because he's doing very well. For me, it felt like an assignment from Dennis to carry out his message to his mother, what I did. I think I could comfort her a bit. I had the same dream twice, and I knew Dennis was fine. Did this boy look different in the dream than before? He was handsome, tall, sporty, and very smart. He looked the same as before, but also a tad nicer and different. It's hard to describe. Somehow he looked blurry. He was young and didn't have any wrinkles anyway. I'm getting goosebumps again. But in my dreams, he looked like an angel. He was a pretty child, but he was so pure in the dream. Look, I've got goosebumps again. He was really pure. He appeared to me like an angel, a real angel. He was dressed in a bright white robe, and his hair was brunette blonde. In the dream, he was even prettier than he was before. He had such a radiance. His eyes and his smile were beaming so much that I could see he was at peace. His appearance made it clear to me that he must have been really well.